Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, September 21st, 2021. Hope you're all having a great day. Looks like a relatively busy morning here, or looks like there's some action. So let's go over it here pretty quick, right? First things first, FOMC, or the Fed, right? They're having a two-day meeting that started today. So that's going to make this market maybe a little bit nervous, right? We're expecting a statement tomorrow at 2 p.m. And so we're kind of anticipating a little bit of nervousness maybe from this market still, right? That being said, we're getting a pretty nice little gap up here this morning. And some of that may be concerns from this Evergrande scandal or I guess their inability to manage debt, right? That seems to be getting overblown a little bit here, right? They gapped up relatively well, kind of in Chinese trading, right? They're up like 4.5% or something like that, or they were, sorry. And we talked about this yesterday, right? How that gap up that we saw, or sorry, gap down that we saw yesterday, or sort of that weakness that we saw yesterday, right? It's kind of hard to trust that overnight action when half of Asia was on holiday, right? When it was really only kind of like Hong Kong trading. So today we got a full kind of overnight slate, right? Europeans and Asians both had their opportunities to dominate or kind of play with the futures markets. And we are getting a slight gap up here, right? I'm not... I don't know how much I trust these moves here yet, right? Like I still I don't think we're gonna get any like ranged or like trend breaking days here, right? Or trend starting days here until kind of post FOMC, right? That's gonna be definitely my bias. So I want to be kind of just adopting like a scalper's mindset again today, right? Just quick little wins, take what we get, not be too greedy, locking in wins kind of along the way, and giving ourselves a chance to make some money, right? We don't need to take any stupid risks. We don't need to take any make any like stupid decisions here, right? Market's going to be tough, so let's be quick in and out, right? Let's not take away. Let's just stack up green days, right? We can stack up green days in these conditions that are blowing up a lot of traders, right? We're going to have a really good opportunity to kind of dominate the market when it starts behaving a little bit again, right? So it's been a really tough market for a while now. Hey, good morning, Jonathan, right? Been a really tough market for a while now. But that doesn't mean we need to start assuming it's going to start behaving nicely right away. So scalper's mindset, right? Take your quick wins, quickly move on, and hopefully we can keep just stacking up those green days, right? So let's talk about what kind of what I'm looking at specifically from some individual securities here, right? SPY, we need this FOMC news to clear, right? Or to kind of figure out what it wants to do. We have a huge gap to fill, right? From this like $3 gap essentially. And so I think there's maybe some potential for us to play some action there. If we could get inside that gap, I'd love to be able to play that. But I wanted to maybe see us break out into it. What I'm going to want to see here probably is like a strong opening volume, right? Full body candle, volume above average. We're going to struggle with the SPY to get kind of that opening volume bar to be larger than previous close or any volume bar recently, right? Because we had quad witching on Friday, and then yesterday was a very high volume day. So I think... right, we have to remember though with the SPY, right? It's very high volume, but the highest volume bar of the day, right, was this buying action into the close. So we might not be able to get like that highest, 5 min or 15 min volume bar, right? But we have a lot of buying strength yesterday from the close, right? That could potentially help push this up. So I wanted to see this best case scenario give us that breakout over, right? That 437 area. But if we're holding above that now, that's fine. Let's just see if we can get that full body hold at the open, right? And then look to see if we can get some follow through up and over, right? It might be a good place to wait for like a low vol pullback, right? Something along those lines, because we do have a pretty big gap up, right? And sometimes when you get this kind of huge gap, when it's like so obvious, right? The market likes to move in the second most obvious way. right? And so this gap is going to be the most obvious, right? It might not fill as easily as people want it to. So, like, it might be a good day. It might be good. This might be a good place to wait for like a low vol pullback, right? If we do break down, guys, just another worth thing mentioning here, right? Is we get a lot of these kind of hammers. I'll highlight like ones like, oh, fuck, that's a terrible, it's a terrible drawing tool. So if we like this pattern here, right? This is kind of what I'm also kind of have back in my mind a little bit, right? When we get these kind of hammers, we don't always get that kind of clean follow through to the upside here, right? So, okay, yeah, relatively high volume after a bit of a sell here, right? Like we sold off 5% from the lows, but we tend to not get much follow through to the upside on that kind of red hammer. So it's a little bit of caution, right? That's why I want to make sure maybe little bit of extra bias, right? If we do get that full body hold in the morning, right? That we wait for that low ball pullback, or we wait for that little extra sign of weakness getting taken out before we jump in. If we do get breakdowns to the downside, right? We have evidence of those hammers breaking, right? Of those red hammers breaking, that we can be pretty confident that maybe they'll be able to get some follow through, right? Underneath. My bias is probably to the upside here, right? It felt like a buy the dip type sell. For now, right? We still held, like, we bounced off of the 100 EMA yesterday, right? Which I'm gonna just change to this white line here for a sec, or sorry, this yellow line, right? So it still maybe feels like a buy the dip opportunity. Let's see how this thing comes together. Right, QQQ is a very similar story, but this gap up to the upside's like a little bit smaller, right? I still expect a little bit of chop. I do prefer how this is, right? We're kind of gapping up, but gapping in within sort of our range, right? So if we do get this thing to break out over, maybe we are going to be able to play this in a bullish way, right? I don't know how much follow through we're going to get above that 370 260 area. Right, but above that 370, right, 370.10, we certainly look like we've got room down towards that up towards that 372, right? So that would be potentially a way to kind of look to play this if this thing wants to gap up and SPY is strong, right? I'm not going to want to fight the market here, so if for whatever reason, right, we're not getting that quick move or whatever, I'm not going to hold into this. It's been a really controlled sell, right? So it hasn't felt like we've had that rug pull yet, right? Where the market really flushes like $1, $1.50, $2, right? Or SPY does or QQQ does. I haven't really felt like we've had that in this sell-off here yet, right? And so that still kind of feels like very controlled, right? Very controlled action. But I don't want to assume that that's going to be how this thing sells off if we're offside here, right? So my bias is going to try to, like, again, right, scalper's mindset, if I'm not winning on this play relatively quickly, or I'm not up on it relatively quickly, I'm not going to be wanting to hold this for too long, right? Put premiums were super expensive yesterday. I wonder if they're going to make call premiums very expensive today for these gap fills. So we'll have to see how they price, but I think there's a little bit of potential here, right? If we do break down, guys, I'm looking for a breakdown under that 360 area, right? This seems to be a bit of a zone here, right? Low volume consolidation, breakout up and over. If we do break out over that 370, right, I do expect this to be a little bit of resistance, right? So I don't know how much follow through we can get towards that 375, right? There might be cleaner plays, all things considered, right? There might be cleaner plays than QQQ to the upside. So we'll keep an eye on it, right? I think maybe there is some potential, but there might be cleaner action, right? Apple, very much a mixed story here, right? It's kind of the most doji of the core 5 names. Not really like a super strong doji candle by any means, right? But it kind of looks a little bit more indecisive, right? Certainly looks less like a hammer than all of them, right? SPY very much looks like a hammer, right? QQQ very much looks like a hammer. Apple, we're starting to kind of fade away from that a little bit here, right? So If we do maybe get some relative weakness here this morning, right, Apple could be showing us that most weakness potentially, right? Well, it's just, for me, I call it the same thing, right? I don't really. For me, it's the same thing. For the hammers, right? But so, like, I think there's a little bit of a mixed story here, right? So, like, for me, a hammer can be a reversal signal or what you would call it, or basically just reversal signal, right? And it depends on which way it's swinging. So, hammer swinging down, right, which would be a top heavy wick, something that looks like this, right? This would be bearish bias, right? Hammer that's swinging up, which is something like this, right? That would be bullish bias. So these are swinging up, right? But it's still not bulls in control. But anyway, so we're not getting like super high conviction candle here, right? It's not a textbook, really any kind of pattern, right? And relatively strong volume. So I think we need to kind of respect this to the upside. I don't really like bullish plays here, right? 70-cent gap, okay, seems really reasonable, right? Seems like it could fill, but I don't really know if the strength is there yet here, right? Or I have less conviction that there is strength there. So to the upside, right, it's like B plus, B minus, right? And to the downside, if we get that weakness, this is probably going to be my favorite looking play, right? Because it's giving us that most kind of indecision in that candle makeup. So if we're able to get that breakdown under that 140, 120, I think Apple has a chance to get towards that 140. If it hits that 140 zone and can't kind of, right, like 140 is huge. So it really needs to kind of defend that area. If it can't, right, this market could get really, really ugly. I'm expecting 140 to get defended pretty aggressively from Apple. So, I still think it's a bit of a mixed story, right? I'm looking for breakdowns under that 140, 124. That would be my favorite play on Apple. But in general, this might be better to watch than to trade, right? Tesla, we have maybe a couple ways we can play this, right? I was really curious in, right, possibly playing this, this wedge breakout, right? If we get this breakdown, we can look for moves under that 718 towards that like 710, right? 700 and then 680. But I think there's two ways we can play this to the upside today, right? One, we can play this gap fill from this like 741 towards this like 750, right? Or we could play, if this gets really strong, right, play this wedge breakout over that 765, right? So I think probably both are pretty reasonable options. If you get one, maybe you set up yourself a trigger for the other. And so that could be a really fun play, right? I think there's a decent amount of strength here, a decent amount of relative strength at least, that you could get some follow through. So I'd be curious to see if Tesla can give us that action, right? Maybe a little bit of that indecision like we were talking about here with this Apple, right? Maybe candle looks a bit like that. But I would say still you see quite a bit of evidence of dip buyers kind of protecting that 720 area. We're seeing a decent amount of dip buyers protecting this pattern in general, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, now 8 examples of it, right? And so that makes me kind of think that there's a bullish bias here if this thing can break out, right? We talked about 10 minutes ago or so, right, how a bit less, right? How if QQQ, maybe it's better to watch the upside, right? Like how there's going to be cleaner setups, right? Tesla's that example of it, right? Where this is like, it looks really similar and there's kind of a very similar story being told here. But Tesla has, showed us a little bit stronger relative strength on Friday, right? Looks a bit like a low vol pullback, right? You can make the argument this is a low vol pullback or lower vol pullback, right? With high volume dip buyers. So there's a lot of stories here that are just like a little bit more bullish, right? Just a little bit more bullish than QQQ. And so that makes it just a tad bit stronger, right? Last one here, right, is this Microsoft. Microsoft to me feels very range bound, right? Not really a gap to play. And kind of needs to figure out what it wants to do here, right? So needs to either get over that 306.20, right, or needs to get under that 288.50. I don't really see anything else there, right? Maybe we can get like an intraday setup. Maybe it'll be like a BB play or something. But for me at the moment, right, I think Microsoft's still in a period of consolidation. Let's see what it wants to do. Probably more just one to watch, right, than anything else. So that's kind of it for me this morning, guys, right? If we can get that SPY gap and we get that strong volume, low vol pullback, right, there could be something there. Apple, if we get that downside action, probably my favorite move. QQQ looks pretty decent if we can get a little bit of follow through, right? Maybe not A plus, right? But looks like there's a pretty decent gap to fill, and it is kind of underneath our resistance. So maybe there could be something there, right? Apple, just talked about, and Tesla, right? Tesla, if we can get that bullish action, right, this is going to be my favorite play of the day. So I hope you guys all have a really good day. Best of luck out there. Happy hunting. Please like and subscribe to this video. If you guys want to trade these setups with me and see how I trade these plays, right, and kind of see where my entry is, where my stop loss is, what strike price, right, start your free trial at www.dtrtrading.com. Trade with me for a week, right, see what it's like, and then choose if you want to stick around. But I live stream on my plays, and yeah. So that's it, guys. Best of luck. Happy hunting, and see you all tomorrow. Peace.